So I wanted to talk about the current because it seemed like it tied into what you were just saying. And it's also in the January 30th calendar discussion is the current. And for me, the thing that I tend to do is I tend to get involved in busyness and doing and thinking about things. And even as I was taking notes while listening to you, I noticed how my mental processes tend to take me away from feeling the current.
Give us more detail about what you mean by the current.
Well, once upon a time, months ago, when I was meditating, I could just feel afterwards in the process of it, toward the end of it, like my whole field was lit up. There was this lighting up of my auric field, and it just felt absolutely alive and
That's
wonderful.
what it feels like when all the circuits are open, when the resistance is gone,
Yes.
or less, and you're allowing more of the juice
Yes.
from who you really are, from your vortex, from who you really are, to flow. Yes.
And there's a lot you say in today's discussion, January 30th, about the current being your connection with Source. And if you just, if you will, master it.
You know, it's interesting because that current is always flowing to you. And you adapt to it. You adapt to the way you allow it. Now, those were very specifically chosen words. You adapt to the way you allow it. Here's another way of saying that. You adapt to your own resistance. You get used to the way that feels. And it's interesting because when you get used to the way that feels, then allowing a little more juice to flow is something that you can physically feel, and maybe something that initially feels a little off to you even, because you're not really used to it. We like to play with you about it's a terrible price you pay for this alignment, all that bliss and everything. The way for you to really be aware of your connection or your alignment to that current is by doing your best to stay focused on whatever you believe caused it. And in doing so, you allow it to become more. And as you allow it to become more, the momentum of that allowance, of that more and more allowed current, will carry you into realizations and into experiences that then you can begin to make the association of. We've been saying for a long while that there are two ways of knowing how you're doing in terms of that alignment, or as you say, that feeling of that current. There are two ways to know what your alignment is. One is by the way you feel, and the other is by how things are turning out. So now, in the spirit of what we're talking to you about, turning vibrations to thoughts and thoughts to things, as things are turning out, if you can make the correlation, well, how was I feeling before that happened? In other words, what feeling came before this thing? Or what feeling came before this thing? So you begin to master your understanding of your state of allowing. Esther was sitting at the beach a day or two ago. She was alone, sitting in her van, and she went specifically for what you're talking about. She went to feel that current. She went because she knows, first of all, that ocean is wide open out there. And as she faces out there, she knows that there's no resistance out there in those airways at all. And the people that she sees are frolicking in the surf. They're getting better on their surfboards. They're picnicking. She can hear the happiness in their voice as they're walking by. So she knows she's picked a sort of resistance-free zone. So she sat and focused, did a short meditation, cooked breakfast in her van, basked in the fun of that. And then she sat, she opened enough windows just for the perfect breeze. She created what she believed was the perfect environment for alignment with well-being. And then she sat there in perfect alignment with well-being and thought, I don't really feel the juice. She's so used to that. She's so used to alignment that it's just the normal way she feels. It's just the normal way she feels. She remembers the first day or two, or 3 or 4 or year of standing at the podium and waiting for Abraham to come in. It felt like she had her toe in a light socket at first, because the vibrational attitude of her being and the vibrational attitude of our being took a little while for her to adjust into that vibrational frequency, you see. And so one day we were talking with a woman in a setting like this, and we were wanting to help her get her juices flowing a little bit. She was bored with life and disappointed with all things, and she wasn't having any of us either. And so we were wanting to suggest things to her that might get her juices flowing just a little bit. So we suggested something, and she said, "Oh, I've already got that." And we suggested something else, and she said, "Oh, I've already got that." And it became evident that what she meant by desire, the feeling of desire, the feeling of really getting those juices flowing, was that angst or contrast between not having it and wanting it. And there are a lot of people that's the current that they're looking for. They're looking for that sort of edge. And there is something delicious about that edge. Don't you love to sit down to a wonderful meal when you're really hungry? And if you just ate 5 minutes ago, don't you feel different about the wonderful meal that is before you? If there's some hunger or if there's some asking, then the receiving is so much more delicious. And so that's what we are encouraging you, because we can feel that you know how to get into alignment, you know how to meditate, you know how to raise your frequencies, you do it all the time. You know how to feel good. We want you to realize that being tuned in, tapped in, turned on sometimes feels like ecstasy. Sometimes it feels like love. Sometimes it feels like appreciation. Sometimes it feels like passion. Sometimes it feels like true interest in something. Sometimes it's a feeling of utter fascination. Sometimes it's a feeling of utter well-being, like floating in a sea of contentment and well-being. In other words, the feeling of alignment, that feeling of being tuned in, has everything to do with everything that's going on with you around it. Do you see what we're getting at? And that's why we talk so much about step 1, ask. Step 2, source answers. Step 3, you allow. And now we're talking about step 4, which is the mastery of that, getting so good at feeling alignment that you can get there really easily. And then step 5, maybe the most important step of all, no longer be mad at yourself if you're back in step 1. In other words, an acceptance that contrast is necessary for the focusing. That contrast is necessary for the feeling. That contrast is necessary for the molding of the clay. You really do want an ability to reason. You just want to be so much more in the attitude of well-being than in the attitude of pessimism. You just want to lean easily into feelings of appreciation rather than feelings of criticism. You just want to have control of the direction of your thought. And it's our promise to you that the natural processes, the natural laws, the natural momentum of law of attraction will carry you into those stronger and stronger feelings. So as Esther sat there, she was realizing that she was right there, and then all of a sudden, a flood of insight began pouring through her. She got her computer and began writing. She's working with us on new meditations with music behind them, and one full meditation came to her in about 5 minutes' time, because that's what that flow is like once you get into that state of alignment. But people would say to Esther, even Jerry would say to Esther when she would come off the platform, he would say, "That was the most significant dynamic piece of discussion I've ever heard anywhere, anytime," as he would show her his notes. And he would say, "How did it seem to you?" And Esther said, "It was sort of like talking about what we were going to have for lunch." Because Esther doesn't have that feeling of amazement, because she's not pitting it against or applying it against anything else. You see what we're getting at? That's the beauty of being here in your physical format. You get to feel the movement forward into the new understandings. And that's what it's all about. You keep thinking, "Oh, I just want to be over there where it's all understood, and over there where it's all achieved, and over there." And we say, that isn't what you want. What you want is the understanding that it's ever unfolding. There's never an ending to the exhilaration that you're feeling on your way to more, on your way to more, on your way to more, on your way to more.
So what I wanted to say about things is, it seems like the universe is just always sending all this flow, energy, current,
Nonstop.
nonstop. And my personality, let's call it that, is like always in a state of resistance. And as I become more tuned to it, I let a little bit more in and a little bit more in and a little
That's
bit
a good
more.
description of almost everyone until eventually you get hooked on allowing. You get hooked on that feeling. It's like allowing yourself to be the realizer of the beauty of that surf. It's like willing to focus on it for just a moment and be the realizer of what that all means, of the gift that it is to you personally. There's a worthiness thing that's mixed in all of you, where you really can't, almost all of the time, take in what's being offered to you. It's like you have to practice letting the love in that's being offered to you, and you're not that good at it. And that's why you want to justify it through hard work, or you want to justify it by having plenty of other people there enjoying it with you, because after all, this shouldn't be just for you. There's a resistance to accepting the value and the perfection and the wonderfulness and the importance and the value that is you. You are out here on this leading edge as the new decider of where the energy will flow. But if you sit in that resistant place of not liking yourself, or not letting in because you're mad at somebody else, or not letting the new in because you're so fixated on what's already here, oh, it's so delicious. Once you catch the vision of this, once you get it, that you are a creator, and once you get it, that you're vibration, and once you get it, that what you want matters, and once that desire occurs to you and you feel it, and you know for sure, oh, now I felt it, it's a done deal. It was a done deal before you felt it, but you didn't know as much. Now I felt it, it's a done deal. Now it's my job to relax and witness the unfolding. Not the grind it into place, not the hammer it into place, not the making it happen, not the effort in it, not the justifying or defending it, not the tongue hanging out, working all day, all day, all day. The witnessing of the universe's ability to orchestrate and organize circumstances and events for the benefit of you, you worthy being. But you got to talk yourself into that worthiness. That's where most of the work lies. Because you have, for the most part, accepted the, looking for a kind word. You've been accepting what others in their defensive nature have been assigning to you, you see. And so it's only someone who's tuned in, tapped in, turned on, who can feel about you the way Source really feels about you. And so you just want to stop looking for love in all the wrong places and look for it where it really is. Look for it where it is.
So one more thing on the personality part. I notice sometimes that when I'm willing to appreciate parts of me that are perhaps outside my personality, that the personality isn't dominating and controlling everything that's happening to me. It's like there's a bigger piece of me that's going through day-to-day world, through life, and wonderful things are beginning to happen from that perspective. And I kind of let go of the personality knowing what's going to happen next, or knowing how good it might be.
Well, it's a nice thing. When that desire hatched and you realized it, that was realizing something. When that idea came, it wasn't something that you looked at. It was something that you interpreted. It was something that you received. It was something that you formulated. It was something that you conceived of. It wasn't something that you witnessed. It was something that you allowed yourself to know without seeing it. If you've come here and you just want to know how to get more money, this conversation might seem like the long, hard road to get there, but it isn't. It's the shortcut. In fact, it's the only way to get there. If you could just accept that when you first feel that desire and it feels fresh, that that's the state of fresh feeling that you want to accomplish on a daily, even hourly, even moment-to-moment basis in order to be in that place where you get to watch the things happen.